Good morning. I'm Dr. Shilpa Balan, professor at the Department of Information Systems at California State University in Los Angeles. And I'm here with Sheryl Okuno. Sheryl, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Sheryl Okuno. I'm the Director for IT Security and Compliance. I'm also the Information Security Officer for Cal State LA.
Thank you, Sheryl, for participating in this interview today. The purpose of this interview today is to share with the audience the importance of learning cybersecurity technologies, the impact of cybercrimes, and how to respond to these cyber incidents. So, as we know, Sheryl, that I got to read one recent article that was from Norton Internet Security, and it specifically spoke about data breaches, and it gave some statistics in the first half of 2019. And Norton Internet Security reported that there were publicly disclosed breaches 3,800, 4.1 billion number of records were exposed, and from the year 2018, 54% increased in the number of reported breaches. And in the history of cybercrimes and data breaches, as per the report from Norton Internet Security, Capital One is reported to be as one of the biggest data breaches, and the report states that there are 106 million records breached, and typically we see in data breaches, and so in Capital One, that a lot of customer information has been compromised, such as the email addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, bank accounts related to social security numbers, and probably more. But in this data breach of Capital One, it was seen that there was no impact on the customer, there was no harm done in the customers, even though there was a data breach. So given these many number of data breaches, it has only, I think, become a necessity to be aware of these cyber threats and how to respond to these. So what are your thoughts on this, and how would you recommend that an individual can respond to such cyber threats based on your experience?
Well, I think that while the majority of incidences that are recorded are noted as cybersecurity breaches, we do get a lot of cases where it's just basically an account that's been compromised because using an easy password, responding to an email message, going to a really bad website that infects your computer. So I think there's a whole lot of things. Basically, our lives are on the internet. Our personal data is on the internet. It's all about really big data. And, you know, we have to be very cognizant that our information is out there. And I don't know if we can really do anything about our own personal information being on, sites like, Capital One. We have to talk about Facebook, our social media. We just have to be very careful about the information that's out there and being provided.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning about passwords. So is there any specific advice you would give to the audience about passwords that we create for our logins?
So, I think the question that we've been having probably the last decade is about how secure our passwords are. And people trying to move off of using passwords, maybe using biometric data, but again, that's data. But we haven't really found a solution or a replacement for passwords. So the best thing is to always use a really long password, to use uppercase, lowercase, numerical, special characters, whenever possible. But right now, one of the additions to password security is using multi-factor authentication. And that's basically you use your password and then you validate you are who you are with something that you have. So right now the campus is using two-step verification, and we have that as an option for students. And starting spring of 2020, we'll be requiring that for direct deposits, because like our banking industry, they're using two-step verification. They're using multi-factor authentication to secure financial information. So I highly encourage people to use that. It may be a little bit more difficult to get access to your accounts, but you know, I think it's really definitely worth it to use that to make sure, you know, because it's just peace of mind that, you know, you don't want all of your financial information out there.
Yeah.
You don't want people accessing your accounts that shouldn't have access to your accounts. You shouldn't have your information that's shared publicly, you know, to everybody. It should be always be secured, because, you know, easy access isn't always the best.
And I also tend to see that there is a pattern for individuals typically using the same password for multiple accounts.
Yes.
And that is something I believe that you would advise that
Yes.
we shouldn't do.
Yes, we should not do that. If you're using the same account and the same password, like Capital One, they have access to your campus account, or they have access to your banking account. If you have multiple banking accounts and you're using the same account and password, they'll use that information, and they'll share it to the community, to the hacking community, and they'll get access to all of your accounts. So yes, definitely avoid using the same account and same password across the board. You need to use something different for everyone. And again, if you use the same account and the same password, use multi-factor authentication. They can't get access to your account if you know it's basically a one-time password for every time you log in.
Sure, thank you. And what about spam emails? Because I think probably all of us have experienced getting at some point or the other, or maybe even often, spam emails. And in my understanding, if an individual thinks that an email is a spam email, they should probably move it to their spam folder rather than just deleting it. What advice would you give to respond to spam emails?
So right now we have something, the Office or Outlook web access through Office 365. When you do receive junk email, or when you receive a message that comes into your inbox that you know is spam or a phishing message, there's an option at the top where you can report that as junk mail, or you can report that as a phishing mail.
Okay.
And I don't know if
That's for our campus.
that's for our campus. For our students, I'm not sure whether or not they know the difference between spam messages and phishing messages. We also receive spear phishing messages. So basically what the bad guys do is they gather up all your information, and they customize messages that are dealt specifically for you, and they look so real. So be very careful about messages coming in. Make sure in the header that the from person is coming from actually you. So if you, Dr. Balan, sends an email message out to your students, make sure it's coming from the Cal State LA email address.
Sure.
And not from Hotmail, not from Gmail, not from Yahoo, or not from AOL. Also, kind of hover your mouse over the address field so that it actually shows who it's coming from, because you can spoof those emails. You can say it's coming from Dr. Balan at calstatela.edu, but it actually, when you hover over it, it's coming from a different source. if you receive a message, make sure that it's a message that you actually were expecting. If it's not expected and it's a message offering something that's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. It probably isn't true. So you just have to be very careful, be very alert. Alert your help desk. Tell them that you received a message that, you know, you see it as a problem, and you know, at least they'll know, and you know, they can try making efforts to communicate that across the campus to let other people know.
And so examples of these phishing emails or phishing messages could be something maybe like, what could be some examples of these phishing emails?
Say,
like maybe someone won a lottery or something like that?
We get a lot of messages from people saying that somebody that they know saying, I'm really busy. Can you do me a favor? And then they'll respond saying, yeah, sure. What can I do for you? And they'll come back and say, well, I need you to run to the market or something, and I, you know, because of the holidays, I need you to buy $500 worth of gift cards. Go get them, and when you come back, let me know, and then I'll need you to scratch off the back, take a picture, send that picture to me, and you know, I'll pay you back right away. We also get messages from people that say, I've got this really good job offer, you know, contact me with your name, your home address, your personal phone number, your email address, your personal email address, and let me know, and you know, we'll see about hiring you. And you know, we have a lot of people being phished, you know.
And I think even outside the campus, I think some typical phishing messages that I have heard of are where someone wants to deposit money in somebody's bank account, and this way they trick to try to get somebody's bank account. But I think that's a very common phishing message, right?
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay. And so, what are there any other tips that you would like to share? So, since we are talking about spam emails and cyber attacks, so typically all of us as individuals, I believe, we use some kind of antivirus software, and one of the worst attacks, cyber attacks, that again I know that an individual on their personal laptop, so it's not really for an organization here on this question, so more for an individual, I think they can come across something like a Trojan attack, which actually steals all the information of the individual from the computer. So I'm not sure if all of the antivirus software are programmed to catch these kind of attacks. What are your advice on the antivirus software?
Unfortunately, we have a majority of people that don't use antivirus.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, and you know, we've got people who are using like their smartphones and their tablets that don't have antivirus. They're not patching, they're not updating their machines, or they're not updating their devices. But you know, that's just one piece. The antivirus is just one piece to controlling this. It's not just about antivirus, because antiviruses don't necessarily catch all of the malware that's coming across. You know, for a couple years we had ransomware, and that was a big thing. Right now, what we're seeing over probably the last 2 years is an increase in Bitcoin malware, because again, that hits the financial industry.
Sure.
So you know, I think that there's a whole lot of things that we need to do, which is using strong passwords, using multi-factor authentication, using antivirus, making sure that whatever email messages you receive, that you're looking at who's sending it, whether or not it was expected, whether or not there's links that go to another site that, like instead of Cal State LA, it goes to some other place called from GoDaddy.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's not just all about antivirus.
Okay. So it's always good to back up the data.
Yes, it always is good to back up.
Okay. Thank you. And as I read that there are still a lot of jobs in cybersecurity that I think industries don't have enough people to fill in those jobs. There's still a need for more students and more individuals to get into this field and to develop the skills. So what are your opinions, or can you provide some insights about the various jobs in the field of cybersecurity and the need for individuals to train themselves in these skills?
So I think there's a huge need for all cybersecurity positions out there. We are definitely experiencing issues related to trying to fill positions in cybersecurity. But I think one huge need is finding students or finding people who are qualified to do data analytics. Because we're talking about big analytics.
Sure.
We're talking about everything that we do is all captured. So we really definitely need people who have that experience with data analytics to be able to report where our high risks are, and because otherwise we can't address it. We don't know where our risks are. We can't address it.
So you're talking about basically merging of two different skills here: the data analytics skills that could be applied in the cybersecurity field to trace patterns of cybercrimes.
Yes, yes, yes. I do see a need for women in cybersecurity.
Oh yeah, sure.
And a need for people who really understand security.
Yeah, I am with you on that. I agree.
Yeah. Understanding politics, understanding policies, procedures, guidelines, standards. Somebody who knows NIST, somebody who knows ISO standards. So it's really hard to come by people who have the knowledge and experience in those areas. But because of the huge need, you are definitely would definitely be in an area for success, because there is that huge need for cybersecurity professionals.
Right. And since you were talking about women in cybersecurity, and I completely agree on encouraging women and girls to expand their career interest in this field in cybersecurity. I think there are also a lot of now cybersecurity conferences, like for women in cybersecurity conference. I see those, a couple of those at least, and I was recently happy to give recommendation for one of my students to go to a Women in Cybersecurity conference, and I think that's scheduled at Denver, Colorado in the upcoming spring. And talking about conferences and competitions, I'm also proud to state that we have had some of our students win a recent cybersecurity competition, and I'm happy to state that I was their mentor. So what are your thoughts or some encouraging words for students and individuals to participate in cybersecurity conferences and competitions?
Well, first of all, congratulations.
I'm
very happy that our students came out, top. But, it really is very beneficial to attend these conferences, because you're getting a bigger picture than what you're learning in your classrooms, because basically it's an add-on to what you've been learning, and you're seeing real time people who are out there fighting the battles, you know, and they're presenting on what their experiences are. So I think it's definitely beneficial to go to these conferences, and also beneficial because you want to meet your counterparts. You want to meet people that you know, that can help promote you. So that's good. With regards to competitions, I think it's great that, you know, we have students that are participating in these competitions. You know, you definitely can use this, your winnings, to add to your resumes when you're looking for a job, because your employers are definitely going to see this
Right.
in your resumes, and they're going to say, hey, you know, you're going to stand out on top of others, and they're going to see that, you know, you've actually initiated something, and that you've won. You know, it's something to be proud of.
So while it is a lot of work, I agree that it definitely helps also from a learning perspective and exposure to see things that other individuals in the industry to meet with are doing, and to also meet with organizations.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So that's about the questions I had for you today, Sheryl. Is there anything else you would like to share with us? I think we already discussed a lot. So
Yeah, I think.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.